Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael and we're going to be getting right back into some more Reddit stories. If you enjoy the video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Now, without further ado, let's begin. This story was posted by a throwaway account in the True Off My Chest subreddit. The post is titled, I am M50 and my F48 wife abandoned me 2 months ago to find herself. My wife Mary's family has a history of dementia, developing memory issues in their mid to late 50s. Her mom, grandmother, and several other relatives on her mom's side have developed dementia. Her mom lived with us for 4 years until earlier this year. Father is dead. Our kids are independent and out of the house. The oldest is in her last semester of college and the younger one enlisted. The last 4 years were tough on us, our kids, and our marriage. Living with someone with dementia is brutal. We had talked a lot over the last year about taking the remaining college funds, our regular savings, selling or renting the house, quitting our jobs, and traveling for a year or until the money runs out. We just had to wait for her mom to move into a home. I understand her anxiety about developing dementia and I was burned out. You live through COVID working remotely, with a wife working remotely, a college and high school student taking remote classes, and a MIL with dementia, and see how you hold up. Space finally opened up and we were able to move her mom into a care facility. I finally thought I had a chance to breathe. When we moved Mary's mom out, Mary's mental health took a huge downward spiral. I went from caring for her mom to caring for her. She felt guilty about putting her mom in a home and had lots of anxiety about developing dementia. Our plan was to start our traveling in summer 2024. 2 months ago, I got home and she'd left a note. My friends call it Exhibit A. Basically, she was going on our trip without me. She had quit her job, taken most of the savings, and wasn't sure when she'd be back. Maybe a year, maybe sooner. She knew I'd understand. Her location is turned off and my calls go directly to voicemail. I texted the kids a picture of the note. We have our own checking accounts for direct deposits of our paychecks, but we transfer most into a joint account to pay the household bills and savings. We both had access to the main savings account. We have joint credit cards we used for household expenses. The 2 cars and mortgage are joint. We both also have our own small savings accounts, our own retirement accounts which are equally funded, and our own credit cards for gifts and fun things. I closed all joint cards and accounts. I waited a month to see if she'd come back. After receiving only 1 text the first month, I went to a lawyer. She basically said there was very little to do right now other than change the beneficiaries of my retirement accounts and life insurance. It was only a month and there was no way to serve her papers. My lawyer advised me to keep paying the mortgage and the cars. The cost of trying to get a judge to approve the sale of joint assets was more than making payments. I didn't want to ruin my credit by letting one of our cars get repossessed, but I can't sell it because she's on the title. I get random texts and she sporadically posts on Instagram. I want to block her so badly, but my lawyer advised me that it's better to maintain a communication channel that's not through our kids. Her last post was from Hawaii. She put in the comments how great a husband I was for letting her take this trip. I'm barely making it paying for 2 cars, a mortgage, household bills, insurance, hoping there are no emergencies because I have no savings and she's enjoying our trip. Her. I'm so pissed at her. I helped take care of her mom for 4 years, and when she fell apart after her mom moved into a memory care home, she returned the favor by abandoning me. I'll never get to take this trip and have to put off retirement. My only solace is the kids are pissed at her, but they'll probably forgive her eventually. Double f her. I'm no fool, she's hooking up with guys. She looks good, she'll have a 0 problem getting men. I texted her and asked if she was sleeping around. A week later, she responded that she wasn't. So I'm drinking alone on a Friday night, and she's somewhere probably on a beach enjoying life. Triple f her. Edit, my lawyer has given me a bunch of advice and options. It was just way more than I could possibly include in this post. I could definitely push the issue harder and I might need to at some point, but all that work is very expensive. Finding her, serving her, getting a judge to sign off, that's not cheap. I'm following up soon and I plan on talking about the savings and my finances. Until I paid all the bills and realized how little was left, it didn't hit me that I had to worry about money. Less than a month later, OP gave us an update. I'm feeling much more positive now that the financial situation has become a little more manageable. Basically, I'm running up debt that will get paid off when I sell the house. Even with lawyer fees, I have 6 to 8 more months before I have to worry about money, assuming there are no emergencies. My friend's wife gave me some good advice. Don't go from being a hero to a villain in your kids' eyes. How I talk about and treat my wife will determine my future relationship with my kids. I don't give a damn about my wife, but I don't want to make her a sympathetic figure or drive them away from both of us. I followed up with the lawyer. Basically, she said we're going to have her pay back the savings she took through a reduction in her share of the assets. Any division of assets will include the savings she took. She'll also have to repay the money I spent maintaining the household while she was gone. There is plenty of equity in her share of the house and her retirement plans to cover that. She said that our finances are so intertwined after nearly 25 years of marriage, my wife is going to get some share of the assets. Best case is she agrees to the terms of the divorce and it's relatively cheap and quick. Otherwise, it gets complicated and expensive. She gave me a lot of options and how much I can expect to spend, so I decided to just mostly wait. I got a couple of credit cards with promo rates for purchases and transfers. That gives me breathing room and I can conserve cash. I'll just pay them off when I sell the house. Now that my financial situation is less stressful, I'm actually enjoying her being gone. I'm free to do whatever I want, whenever. I don't have to cook or clean or take care of anyone. The house is quiet for the first time I can remember. I loved my wife, but her mental health weighed down our marriage. On balance, it was worth it until now. The first month or so, I expected her to be there whenever I'd get home. When someone was at the door, or if I heard noises, I'd think it was her. I'd check the doorbell cam obsessively. I'm not looking forward to her returning. It has to happen, but when she comes back, I'll have to deal with her. The divorce, getting the house ready to sell, dividing all our stuff, finding a new place to live. I'm hoping she'll stay away until after New Year's, but my daughter said she thinks her mom will be home for Christmas. My lawyer will have papers ready to serve her. Hopefully, she'll just agree to the terms and continue her travels. People had some great advice. Renting or selling the house, not really feasible right now since I'd have to fix some stuff and get it ready to sell or rent. Since I need a place to live, the amount I net each month. My kids' rooms are still full of their stuff and I don't want to spend the time and effort to clear them out and put them in storage. Getting a HELOC. This was great advice. I didn't realize I didn't need both people to get a loan. If I need more money, I can go this way. In the short term, the promo rates on the credit cards were cheaper and easier than getting a HELOC. Serving my wife divorce papers or getting a divorce in absentia. This is something I might need to do eventually, but the cost in lawyer fees goes up exponentially in cases like this. I'm comfortable just waiting for now. Look at the phone bill to see where she's at and possibly going. I did look at her usage and did notice that she doesn't post on social media until after she leaves a place. Like when she posted about Hawaii, she made a call that day that originated in Los Angeles. She posted about a cruise and I figured out the dates, but it ended a couple of days before she posted. She tried adding international calling to her line, but I blocked it, so she removed her phone from our account. The next update was posted about a month later and is really short, so I will be including it with another update from OP that was made in late January of this year. Nothing much has changed. Went to the in-laws with my daughter for Thanksgiving. It went well. Everyone was nice and tried to apologize for their daughter, sister, cousin, and niece. I told them it's not their responsibility, I just appreciated them taking us in. It meant a lot to my daughter to be there. Edit, got a text from the wife that she'll be in town for Christmas. Lawyer said the papers are ready so she can be served. It's like an early Christmas gift. I posted this to my profile in case my update gets deleted. My wife texted me in the middle of December that she'd be home for Christmas. I told her that we, our daughter, and I would be at my brother's. She obviously wasn't welcome. I'd leave her car in the driveway and the fob in the backyard. She wasn't allowed in the house unless I was there, as she didn't have keys to get in. She spent Christmas with her sister. When we got back, I met with her. I decided not to be overly confrontational because I didn't want to give her the satisfaction of thinking I cared enough to be mad. She was taken aback by how detached I was. I could tell it bothered her that I didn't show her much emotion, not even anger. I just wanted her to agree to a divorce. This is a summary of several different meetings, both with and without our daughter. She hasn't wanted to meet with her mom alone yet. I asked why she left without telling anyone. She said she didn't want to wait a year. She didn't want anyone talking her out of it. She didn't want to work anymore, and she wanted to leave before her mental health got worse. I'm sure it was mostly because she didn't want me to stop her from taking the money. She knew I would take care of everything with the kids and house when she left. We had decided to go in summer 2024 for a few reasons. Packing everything and getting the house ready to sell was going to be a lot of work. We wanted to make sure our daughter graduated college, got a job, and was settled. We wanted to make sure we had money when we got back. We wouldn't have a house, cars, or jobs, so we needed money because it could take months to find work and a place to live. We didn't want to have any worries or deal with a mess back home. At some point in our planning, she began questioning if she ever wanted to go back to our old life. She didn't want to work full-time or buy a house and stay in one place after we got back. She wasn't sure what she wanted, but she didn't think she would figure it out talking to me. I told her that's the reason we were taking the trip, to figure those things out together, to see what we wanted for the next part of our life. I asked her why she didn't just get a divorce before she left. Then she wouldn't have had to do this behind our backs, and she would have had plenty of money without stealing our joint savings. She claims that she didn't want a divorce, that she wanted us to live whatever life she figured out. I told her that's not how marriages work, one person deciding for the other. In talking and texting our daughter and her family, and through my texts and voicemails, she realized I might not forgive her, so she might have to visualize a future without me. This is where I had hoped she would say some stupid stuff like she was going to squander all her money living in a van and make travel vlogs, or she met some guy that she needed to wire money to so they could open an ice cream shop in Alaska. Instead, she wants to be a digital nomad, working part-time, fully remote, and living in new places. She tried to convince me to go with her, but I'll never be able to trust her. Plus, I don't love her anymore. Traveling like that for a few years doesn't sound bad, but she doesn't have a job or any work lined up. She's not in her 20s, and that way of living will get old quick with no close friends, no family. I want her to make it work so she won't be here trying to get back in our lives. 1. How are the kids doing? Our son wouldn't have seen us the entire time she was gone anyway. He only responds to her with very short texts. He told me she wanted to see him, but he said he was too busy and wouldn't be able to get away. He lives in the barracks, so it's an easy excuse to avoid her. My daughter stopped talking and texting her. She's pretty upset. Her worry turned to anger when she realized her mom wasn't having a mental breakdown but was just being selfish. If her mom was sticking around, they could probably work through it eventually. I just care that my daughter is happy, so whatever she decides, I'll support. 2. Did she spend all the money? About half. I think she realized she needed to figure it out before she completely ran out of money. 3. Did she sleep with anyone? I didn't ask because I didn't care. Asking would imply I wanted her back or it would matter. Even though I didn't ask, she claims she didn't. Not sure if she's lying or not. She might just be saying that because she doesn't want the kids to have another reason to be mad at her. 4. Does she feel bad for what she put us through? She claims she does, and she wishes she had handled it differently. She said getting away and figuring herself out was best for her. I told her she was just being selfish. When she first left, we were worried something would happen to her and we would never see her again. She's always been self-centered. I told her she's taking the easy route and letting everyone else handle the difficult parts. What if she gets sick? Kids will take care of her. What if she goes broke? Live with family. What if she abandons everyone? They'll forgive her. She thinks her siblings and our children will let her live with them like we let her mom live with us. I'm sure when she visualizes her future, she sees our kids there. They might not be, and definitely not in the same way they were before. Despite how it might sound, I'm actually really happy with how it all turned out. Our divorce is far from final, but we've agreed on the big things. We'll sell the house, how to split the retirement and profit from the house, how to pay back the money she took, and what I spent maintaining the household. I got most of what I wanted from the settlement, and she'll soon be out of my life. I won't have to pay alimony, and because she's choosing to make significantly less money than she was, I won't be forced to support her. That would have been a kick to the teeth. She isn't my responsibility anymore, and I won't have to care for her if she does get sick or goes broke. I figured I'd start dating again. I didn't realize a 50-year-old man with children out of the house, a good job, and in decent shape would be a catch. I'm not fighting women off with a stick, but I've had a lot more interest than I expected. It's been kind of nice meeting new women. I've worked out the numbers, and I'll be doing pretty well after everything is settled, and I only have to support myself. Not where I wanted to be. 50, getting divorced, and using Reddit as free therapy sessions. But I'm happier now than I've been in a while. I'm even planning a little vacation of my own. Thank you to everyone that has responded and reached out. It meant a lot. User Ghost Alliance said, I'm glad things are improving for him. I wonder if and when the mom gets dementia, how that will go for support. She may end up as one of those residents without visitors for a reason. Also, aside from ditching her family, she wasn't visiting her mother all that time. Sounds like she has a sibling or two, but still, sad. User Stargazer said, besides the obvious point of the ex-wife detonating a bomb on the marriage and her family, this woman cared for her mom for years, sends her to a care home and feels guilty, so she leaves and still hasn't gone back to see her mom. She's also abandoned her mom as well, somebody who really needs these points of connection. Dementia is a terrible way to decline, but it's made worse by people like this. The nursing home staff likely thinks that this poor woman gets 0 visitors and she's become one of the abandoned people. User YenFR said, it sounds like the wife had a bit of a mental break due to the looming dementia, and she's slowly coming back to reality, but unfortunately, she irreversibly blew up some of the most important relationships in her life. She should have talked to a therapist instead of trying to find herself. Heck, she still should, even though certain things are beyond saving. This next post was made in the relationship advice subreddit by a user named TWA4. The post is titled, My wife 31F asked me 34M to choose between my mom 55F and her. I think I am going to divorce her. A little background. My mom and dad were both orphans. My dad died 2 weeks before I was born. My mom didn't really have a support system, so we were just the two of us. I never lacked anything because my mother worked all her life to give me the life I have today and didn't even have time for herself to start a new life again. She did all the little jobs possible so that we didn't miss anything. She deprived herself of food to give me food. I had very good clothes while she had none. I saw her make sacrifices again and again, and always with a smile. Frankly, I always thought she was an angel dressed in a human body. The only time she yelled at me was when I was 16, when I saw her getting sick and working at the same time. I wanted to help her by finding a job, but she was angry and told me it was not my job to take care of her and it was up to her to take care of me. She wanted me to get really good grades to get into the best universities. It's the only way I can protect myself when she can't anymore. Even at university, she didn't want me to work. I had to be focused on my studies, but she wanted me to volunteer so that I could be an adult who could do something with his hands. I met my wife there while both of us were volunteering. My wife is a good person, but she was never close to her parents or her siblings. Yet she adored my mother since she met her. There were times when I thought she loved my mother more than she loved me, and we laughed about it. Deep down, I think she was looking for the bond between mother and daughter that she did not have from her mother. When I finished my studies, I found a job, we moved in together, but she wasn't comfortable that I called my mom every day, but eventually she stopped bringing it up. 2 years later, I bought a house for my mother. Because we never had a house in our name, we lived from apartment to apartment, so for all the sacrifices she made, it was for me the least I could do, and it was non-negotiable. That's where the problem started with my wife, then GF. She wanted me to think about us first. I told her my dream had always been to buy my mom a house since I was little, and that's what I had to do. But she complained about it to my mom. My mom didn't even know I bought a house for her, as it was supposed to be a surprise for her birthday. She was uncomfortable receiving the house because of my wife and told me that wasn't necessary, that we could use it for us when we get married. I was furious. I told my mother that the house was for her, that she could do with it whatever she wanted, but it was time for her to think about herself first. Our relationship survived that, we got married, and then we had our own house. Our life was going well until 2 months ago when my mother fell ill. I wanted her to come and live with us so that I could take care of her, but my wife didn't want to. I then decided to rent an apartment with my own money right next to our house so that I could be close to her and go there to take care of her. But even that idea didn't sit well with my wife. My wife and I don't have children yet, we both work. I usually come home at 6 p.m. But since my mother is sick, I go to see her and come home at 8 p.m. On weekends, I see her for 1 or 2 hours, and the rest of the time I spend with my wife. We go on dates. I always accompany her in her hobbies, even though she never went to mine. 2 days ago, she told me that she thought about it and she thinks I prioritize my mother too much. She told me that I had to choose between my mother and the life I want to build with her. The truth is that I never made her feel that way. We both work, but I'm the one who cooks, and I pay a person to do the housework. I make sure I do the dishes she likes. She didn't even know what I like to eat because I never complain. I run her baths, give her massages, flowers. I write her poems that I hide somewhere in the house for her to find. We go on a trip one weekend a month. I earn much more money than her. I told her to keep her money for herself, and I take care of all the bills, even hers. I always make sure to listen to her and consider her opinion, and I think I am easygoing because I can change my mind to accommodate hers, but I realize that she tries to completely dominate me, and the only subject where I don't give her a choice is my relationship with my mother. So there, I'm going to have a talk with her and put some very clear boundaries. If she doesn't want to, well, we're going to divorce. Just wanted to get it off my chest. About 3 weeks later, OP provided an update. I keep getting messages asking me for an update. I wanted to do it sooner, but couldn't spare time to do it properly. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for the comments and messages on my last post. I tried to reply to everyone, but I couldn't. I read them all though. Before confronting my wife, I had time to reflect, and I came to the conclusion that I will never again let anyone in my life dictate the relationship I should have with my mother or the time I should dedicate to her. So I decided to answer the ultimatum, but first I wanted to know if there was another reason why she gave me this ultimatum. She replied that there wasn't. I asked her if, apart from what she blamed me for, was there something she wanted to tell me but couldn't. She said there was nothing and asked me to come to the point, so I told her I wanted a divorce. She remained frozen. I think she was shocked because she wasn't talking, she was just staring at me. I told her everything that was on my mind, that our values are too different. I was going through the worst moment of my life. My mother was sick. We did several tests with her. We still don't know what she's suffering from. We don't know her family medical history because she was an orphan. It makes me anxious to know that overnight I could find myself alone in the world. Yes, alone in the world. Because in these difficult times, all I needed was her support. But if my own wife thinks that I should give less attention to my mother who is sick and who needs me more than ever, it's time to go our separate ways. She still didn't say anything, so I told her I'm going to a hotel for now and we'll discuss later how we're going to separate. I took some of my things and left. The next day, when I went to see my mother, she figured out something wasn't right, but I was not going to tell her I was separating from my wife because she could not bear our relationship, especially since she was sick like that. I didn't want to add more torment to her. I never discussed my marriage issues with my mother anyway, so she does not know our problems, and honestly, she adores my wife too much, and my wife behaves as if she was her own mother, so I was not going to tell her what she was thinking behind her back. My mom ends up telling me that my wife didn't come by that day. Yes, my wife who asks me to reduce my contact with my mother was seeing her every day, and I never asked her to do anything for my mother. She calls my mother Mom. When she gets sick, she used to go to my mother so she would take care of her. It used to hurt me because it's as if I couldn't take care of her, but she said that this was not the same. The attentions of a mother are different. I told myself that it was her way of creating a mother-daughter bond that she never had, and I understood her. She even said her mother used to tell her that she was not supposed to be born, that she was an accident, that she almost aborted her and regrets not doing it. Only a monster could say that to her child. So I never said anything whenever she wanted my mother's attention. Besides, I received enough love to share with whoever wanted. My mother, after I left home to study, became a foster mom for children. She always did until 2 years ago. I have always loved each of the children with whom I still keep in touch and whom I consider to be my siblings. Once a year, we all went on vacation together for a week. The children, my mother, and my wife. I generally take 2 months of vacation, of which 6 weeks I devoted to my wife, but the 2 weeks that I devote to my mother and the children were too much for my wife. Anyway, I'm rambling. So when my mom told me she didn't come to see her that day, I went back home because I was worried. I found her in the bathroom with her clothes on and red eyes, like she was crying all along. Seeing her like that was unbearable. I helped her out, but this woman who has so much pride collapsed in front of me with a lot of crying. I don't know if it was an hour or two, but she kept crying, calming down, crying again. I just stayed silent. She ended up telling me that deep down, she never wanted me to involve any less in my mother's life. She was always jealous of our relationship. She was always jealous of the attention my mother gave to the other children. She knows that it wasn't rational, but she couldn't help constantly striving to be number one in my mother's heart. It was kind of a competition for her, so when I wanted to take care of my mom, she didn't want me to be the one taking care of her. I was honestly furious without saying anything, of course, but I wondered if she was a psychopath or something. We are talking about a person who is seriously ill, and she is thinking about her damn competition, even if it means sabotaging the relationship I have with my mother and putting us in a situation where I wanted to divorce her. She told me that she was very jealous of me and that she would have liked to be in my place. If she had to choose, she would have even chosen to be my mother's child rather than my wife, even if I was the love of her life and the only man she had ever known. She also told me that even if the world falls apart around me, I will remain stoic, that I live as if I don't need anyone and that I give everything to others, but I don't know how to let others reach me, and she never managed to get there. Only my mother could get there. At that moment, I did not know what else to say. I was hooked on this idea of competition so that I did not immediately grasp the scope of these words, but I still listened to her to the end. I put her to bed until she fell asleep, then I went to sleep in another room. In the morning, she was acting like nothing happened. She was being herself. She said I don't have to pity her. I told her it was out of love. She was still my wife. She left for work and I did the same, but decided to stay at the hotel for the time being. During that time, I wondered what I could have done to make her act so that she could think about that. Deep down, I think she's right. It's a defense mechanism I've had since childhood. I've never stayed in one place long enough to make friends. It was heartbreaking. Every time we had to move between my 5th and 15th year, I moved more than 50 times, from apartment to apartment, from hotel room to hotel room, and since then, I think I have always lived in my relationships like a squat. I never unpacked and settled in because I knew at any moment I could be kicked out. But I thought with my wife I acted differently, but I guess not. So I thought maybe we didn't need to go that far. What we needed wasn't divorce, but therapy. Then this happened. A little over a week after our discussion, I was called from the hospital. My wife had been hospitalized. She apparently did not feel well. I went to visit her, but she didn't want to see me. If you saw the eyes I saw, I've never seen so much hate in just 2 eyes. I told her besties so she can have her support system because she didn't want me there. I told my mom. She asked me what I had done to my wife so that she ended up in the hospital and that I should not stress a woman who was pregnant. She told me my wife told her and asked her to keep it a secret because she wanted to tell me herself when she was ready. I don't know what was going through my head, between anger that it was my mother who told me, happiness at having to be a dad for the first time, and total confusion at the surreal situation. I went to my wife and told her I knew, but she looked at me again angrily and told me she had lost the baby and it was my fault. In an instant, I just got the news my wife was pregnant but kept it from me, that I was going to be a dad and that we lost the baby and that she was accusing me of having caused something that I did not even know. She asked me to leave and I left. I always wanted children very early on. My wife wanted to put her career first. I understood and accepted. I've been trying to convince her for years but without success. Now she gets pregnant, she doesn't tell me anything, she talks to my mother about it, and she says I caused her miscarriage. Since then, she says she didn't tell me anything because she wanted to first confirm if I could deal with all the responsibilities I give myself and raise a child at the same time. I don't understand her, and I admit since then I have a fierce hatred against her. I don't know how to look at her without having anger in me, and I don't want to hurt her with my words. I take care of her at home, but we don't talk to each other. I'm not going to stay with her, it's not possible. I started a session with a psychologist. He told me that patience was my best weapon, that I shouldn't make a permanent decision on emotions that could be temporary, and that I should take time to see if there were things to salvage. This is where I am. I don't know if I'll do another update. I took days off to be there for my wife and for my mother, but I'm feeling pretty depressed and I just want to get away from all this bullshit right now. Thank you in any case for giving me your point on your first post, for your support or your critics. Over 4 months later, OP gave us another update. It's been a while. I didn't intend to post again after my last one, but even though it's been months, I still get support and people asking me where I am in my life. So I think I owe you at least one last update because your comments and messages helped me a lot during a time I needed it the most. I don't know if it's going to be long or not, but let's go. About my wife. After she had a miscarriage, I had to take care of her because she couldn't do it on her own. After what happened, I had nothing but anger and hatred in me. But as I said last time, if something is fragile enough to break, you have no choice but to treat it gently. I didn't want her to break. I didn't want to leave her in the worst time of her life. So I did my duty as a husband. Despite everything, her mental state was getting worse. She thought she was still pregnant and she was talking to herself. One night she was delirious, mistaking me for her father and thinking that I was going to hurt her. I had to call the emergency room, then after examination, a psychiatrist advised me to have her hospitalized. That's what I did. She spent 6 weeks there. She was diagnosed as having borderline personality disorder. Doctors suspect delusional disorder too, and they also suspect that she was heavily abused as a child, but that's all they were allowed to tell me. She didn't want to see anyone, especially her family. She suggested that we communicate through letters, and every time I went there, I took her letter, then the next day, I dropped mine. It's crazy. I have the impression that in 2 months, I got to know her better than in the 10 years I spent by her side. That reminded me how a good person she used to be despite her flaws. She used to travel to participate in the construction of schools, wells, anything that can help people who lived in precariousness. She didn't just give money, she helped out with her own hands. She's the type to help a foreigner who doesn't speak the language catch his train until she misses her own train. Honestly, she was like a gold mine with lots of resources and kindness in her. Although we had money, we used to enjoy taking public transport to remember the time when we were penniless and enjoy life just because having each other was enough. We would travel without taking money and challenge each other to know how far we would get. Those were the best moments of our lives. We were very close and in love. We thought nothing could break us. What has changed since then? We tried to figure it out in the letters we give each other. We talk about many things. I won't go into details. She owns up to her mistakes and I own up to mine. She takes full responsibility for the consequences of her actions. She apologizes for how she treated me and knows that the only possible outcome is that we divorce. She needs to heal and work on herself. She said she has a long way to go and it wasn't fair for me. She said that given her condition, I wasn't going to talk to her about a divorce. She had to do it herself. There are some battles she needs to fight on her own. Otherwise, she will never be the best version she could be. She doesn't know how long it's going to take, but if she gets there and I haven't moved on, then she'll be happy to start again with me. I've always lived with the idea of fixing broken things rather than throwing them away. But that doesn't work with humans. You can't fix someone unless they want to be fixed. And I wouldn't have had the strength to fix someone because I'm putting all my remaining energy into trying to fix myself. If my wife hadn't made the decision she made, I myself would have proposed a divorce. Paradoxically, it was because she made the decision she made that I saw that there was hope for us. I then offered her a separation rather than a divorce. And a year from now, if we still want to get divorced, we'll get divorced. If we trust that we could be in a healthy relationship, then we'll get to know each other again, communicate, and try to do things differently. She agreed and said that was what she hoped. When she got out of the hospital, she didn't want us to meet because if we saw each other, she wouldn't have had the strength to keep her resolutions. For my part, I had not yet let go of all the negative feelings following the events that happened before her hospitalization, so in the end, it was best for both of us. We chose to continue to send each other letters, and that's fine with me for now. She was able to see my mother. She wrote me what my mother told her, that she will always be a mother figure to her, despite the bad decisions she made, that she didn't have to compete for her love because she already had it, and that's one thing that will never change. She asked me if I was okay with her being in touch with my mother. I told her it was up to them, she didn't need my consent. However, she was not likely going to see my mother too often because I had decided to go to another country for my mother so she could benefit from one of the best hospitals in the world, which is in Europe. About me, I've been in Germany for almost 1 month now and I'm learning to delegate work. It's a resolution I made during my therapy. I needed therapy and it was especially you guys who convinced me. I will always be grateful to you. The therapy sessions were so heavy and tiring that I didn't have the strength to do much after leaving my therapist's room, but it gets better over time. I am currently working remotely. I go back to France once a week to settle things at work and continue my therapy sessions because I don't want to change therapists. I managed to devote time only to myself, which is actually good. One of my foster brothers wanted to come with us to Germany since he manages to work remotely too. He is a great help. In short, I'm getting better and better. About my mom. This is probably the most difficult subject to discuss, and I admit that I don't really want to talk about it, but I also think that talking about it here is good practice to be able to talk about it in my life. A few years ago, we lived from apartment to apartment, hotel to hotel. This is one of the worst times of our lives. The state always found us a place to sleep because we were a single mother and a child. It wasn't stable because we had to change places every time, but it was better than sleeping outside. My mother was and still is a very beautiful woman. It happened that she received proposals for an apartment right in front of my eyes. I don't know what she went through with my dad, but she never wanted to be with another person because she says death doesn't stop a loving relationship from continuing. There was an association that used to take care of us by always finding us a place to stay at night. One day, one of the people who were in charge of finding us places to sleep wanted us to stay in his apartment for the time that they find us a better place because we were in a very unsanitary hotel. My mother didn't want to go, but I convinced her to go because the idea of sleeping warm in a good bed was all I could think of. But after we had dinner at his place, he started making moves on my mother, who stopped him right away. He told us it was either that or we get out of his house. So we left. We went back to the hotel where we were, but our room was already taken. There was nothing we could do, at least that day, so we chose to sleep outside. At some point while sleeping, we were woken up by a group of men who were trying to my mother. They hit me so hard that I was even afraid to try to help my mom. Some other men, whom I guess came back from a party, heard the screams and came to help us. Our attackers fled. I always said that my mother was almost raped. That's what I always said, and I ended up believing it. But my mother was indeed raped before my eyes. I finally said it. My mother was raped before my eyes, and I couldn't do anything. If that day we had thrown ourselves into each other's arms and cried together, maybe things would have been different. But she got up, took my arm, and told me that this place was not safe, that we had to look for a safer place. That was all. We never talked about that day again. We carried on with our lives as if nothing had happened. Things got better eventually. She worked hard so that I could be successful. She invested all the money she earned in her entire life in my project, and today I owe her the company I created. How did she manage to survive the hell she'd been through? Ever since I came to terms with the idea that she was raped, all I wanted was to tell her about it. But it's not about me. It's about her. She's the one who experienced the worst. I would so much like to talk to her about it, but I don't know what good can come out of it after so many years. That's it. That's all. As for today, her condition is improving. The future looks brighter than it did a few months ago. Well, I think that's all. This will be my last post. To all who have followed me in these hard times, I thank you from the bottom of my heart and wish you the best in your life. May what you have left to live be better than what you have already lived.